Hi everybody, this video is going to discuss the general writing assignment that you're going to do to help familiarize yourself with the op-ed types of writing, the styles, the way they're published. And it's a short assignment, it's 1 page. And it's just really an opportunity for me to give you credit for doing something that I need you to do to understand the opinion editorial better. So what I'm asking you to do with this general sort of preliminary, think of it like a preliminary assignment, is I'm asking you to go over just any op-ed that you choose. It can be on a topic that you're interested in, or it can be on something that, like maybe it's published in a school paper for a school that you plan to transfer to. So I'm just going to show you a few things, but first I'm going to go over the assignment. So basically, I'm asking you, like I said, to look over an op-ed piece that has been published. In the old days, it would have been published in a newspaper, and they still are, because like locally the News and Observer publishes, and then, nationally we have things like the New York Times and Washington Post that actually publish. USA Today, I think, still publishes print. But just for convenience, do it through Google, do it through a search online, and then you can find something that's been published with these periodicals. So you're going to choose an editorial, opinion editorial. It does not have to be on your semester-long topic for this assignment. When you actually write your own opinion editorial next week, then you will be writing your opinion on your semester-long topic. But for this exploration of just to see what opinion editorials look like and how they read and how they're written, just choose something you're interested in. It doesn't have to be your semester-long topic. You're going to write 1 page, like I said. You're going to cite it, so you need to cite everything in academics. And then here I just sort of have some prompts for you. Just look at the tone, look at who the intended audience is. So for instance, a Washington Post political op-ed may be intended for a certain type of audience, and then an op-ed written at NC State for the student newspaper may be obviously for a different audience. Then you want to look at the author's use of appropriate phrasing, tone. How did he or she convince the reader of the opinion? What phrasing, what words, how was it shaped, how was it organized? Was the op-ed persuasive? How did the author use language to be persuasive? Did they use logos, pathos, ethos, or some portion of those? We talked about that in rhetoric, but really rhetoric is something that you'll see in a lot of different types of writing, and especially when you're trying to persuade someone, those rhetorical strategies are very important because you're trying to sort of tap into all these kinds of ways of thinking to completely convince them. Also, maybe explain why you picked this particular op-ed. Explain the periodical or newspaper, why, how you found it or what topic you chose. Double space, use Times New Roman, multi-paragraphs. Make sure, and this is very important, anytime that you're going to reference something like something that's been published, a book, an article, a video, anything, you have to properly introduce it before you begin referencing it. So I had suggested that you put all that information in your thesis statement, in your introduction. And obviously this is a 1-page written document, so your introduction does not have to be super long, but it should be a couple sentences. And then you'll have some, short body paragraphs probably, or maybe just one body paragraph and then a little conclusion to conclude the points. It's fine with me if you use an MLA header. If you want to use an APA cover sheet, that's fine. But for this, it is a short assignment, so it's fine if you use the MLA header and page numbering, but make sure you do cite the work in APA. And that would need a references page in addition to the 1 page that you write. So if you put just a link, that is not a citation, so you would not get credit for that. I'm going to open up a new, just like Google, and I'm just going to show you a few ways you can search this. So let's say I'm super interested in gender bias in the media. I'm making it up. So op-ed on gender bias in the media. I don't know what we'll get, but most things that I've tried to search, you do find something. So that's sometimes you might have to rephrase it, but here's an opinion editorial from the New York Times. The media has a woman problem. Tackling the gender imbalance in news media. This is from W. Burr. I'm not that familiar with that one. Here's something from The Atlantic. All sorts of things. Different news agencies. But I'm going to go back to the New York Times because that's a well-known periodical. And I just thought that, maybe this would be a better central thing. So, okay. And anytime you go into the New York Times, Washington Post, USA Today, you start getting ads because they're wanting you to pay a subscription. So, a few things to notice with the op-ed. Look to see when it was published. I'm not giving you any kind of time restraints on this, but this was 2014, so pre-COVID and a few years ago. A good 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago, right? Math. Notice also with the op-eds that they start off with something kind of catchy, kind of conversational. This is kind of more of a public kind of writing, a media form of writing. It's not as academic as you may do in your classes, but we're just looking at it to see how people utilize opinions, publish opinions on controversial topics. And then you're going to do that for your topic next week. So notice how they do use first person. They do sometimes use phrasing that might more often be used in conversation, but you may even see a you, second person in there. When you write your own opinion editorial, try to avoid any kind of cliche phrasing just because, it's sort of, archaic to do that. So the other thing that I will point out to you is some of the op-eds will be around the typical 750, 850 word range. But if you do fall upon something that's written by a celebrity, a political figure, a lot of times these newspapers will give them more space. Maybe that's not fair, but we will see that happen in some. So anyway, if I were doing this as my general writing assignment, I would just read through it, maybe make some notes about it, and then I would sort of try to answer those questions. And again, I would need to cite this from a newspaper for the citation, and I would need to include the author, the title, where it was published, and the main idea of the opinion editorial in my introduction of my paper so that I can properly sort of prepare the reader and to set up the ideas that will be discussed in the review of the op-ed. So that's one, New York Times. Okay, so let's go back and let's say I want to do one on like maybe there is a person that I know has written an op-ed, and of course my phone would ring right in the middle of a video. I didn't have it turned down. Let me turn it down. Let's say I like Matthew McConaughey, and I don't even know if, yeah, there we go. It kind of saved me. Op-ed by, I don't know if he's written any, but he just recently published a book. So I didn't know if maybe he had an opinion. He has a lot of opinions, but I didn't know if he'd written an opinion editorial. Okay, so let's say I particularly like movies that Matthew McConaughey is in. And then I'm like, oh, that might be fun just to see if he's written some. It doesn't look like he's written any op-eds, but recently he did talk about wanting to be the governor of Texas. So here someone has written an op-ed for CNN, which is fair game for this assignment. Hopefully it'll come up. And this one's telling Matthew McConaughey, do not run for governor. So maybe I'm a fan of Matthew McConaughey, but I just want to see, again, the ads are killing me. But, I want to see what they've said about him. Let me see if I can move it a little bit. Ugh. Anyway, so this might be somewhat entertaining and timely for your reading pleasure for this assignment, and it's fairly short. As I said, most opinion editorials are restricted for word count, usually anywhere from 750 to 850, but you may see some as short as 500 to 600 words. I've noticed, and I just know for a fact that, I'm just going to start over here. I know for a fact that Angelina Jolie is someone from Hollywood that has written a lot of opinion editorials. Oh shoot, I forgot to put, so I'm going to do that. And she's written a lot. She was someone who made some choices about surgeries. Her mother and aunt had passed away from cancer, breast cancer, and I believe ovarian cancer. And so she was very concerned about her own health. And so she's written about that and her choices for elective surgery, for a mastectomy, and then a hysterectomy. So she has written some opinion editorials about that. She's also written some opinion editorials about other topics such as treatment, I believe treatment of immigration candidates, children in the immigration process, international topics, because she is very involved in those movements. So this one was, I've read this one before, so I'll just go ahead and tell you about it. This kind of is her opinion editorial in the New York Times about her decision. And I should just go ahead and, they want me to do an account. I probably have an account, but I don't pay for it, so it may only let me look for one. But the Angelina Jolie one is a very poignantly written opinion editorial. I don't know if I can get it to come up again a different way. I'm always going to try it a couple of different ways. But she's always very personal in her opinion editorials, and we don't hear her speak a lot in commercial type interviews or entertainment type videos. But in her opinion editorials, she's very transparent, and she really does share a lot of her views. So it's kind of interesting. But I don't see that first one I looked at, but there is one here where she talks about a mother's strength. And it may show that we need to log in. You're welcome to try. Let me see if it'll let me continue. I don't think it's going to. Let's see. Got it. I've had this problem before, and you may encounter this problem. There's a way around it, but I don't want to waste your time finding it. Another, it's just asking me for too much, so I'm going to kind of skip over this. But one of the things that I think you can also do is possibly go to NC Live in the scholarly research section for the library at JCC, and possibly review some opinion editorials there, since they pay the subscriptions for certain things. So I am going to go, let's say I just want to see, I want to transfer to East Carolina. That's where I went, so I'll just use that. And I'm going to put in, I just happen to know it's the East Carolinian, but let's say I don't know. East Carolina Student Newspaper Opinion Editorials. Years ago, I had a student who wanted to transfer to Denver University, or the University of Denver, and it was kind of cool because she looked at that school before she actually transferred there, and she chose for this assignment to do something from that university, and that was kind of fascinating. Had another student who wanted to go to UNC Chapel Hill. He was born and raised in Johnston County, and when we were doing this assignment, he came back to class like the next day, and he said, Miss Austin, that's a different place, Chapel Hill. Like they do some interesting things. And what had happened was someone had burnt down a tree on Franklin Street by mistake, but had kind of burnt down a very cherished tree, something that was historically valued. And of course, trees are life, but like it was something that in the town of Chapel Hill they valued. And I believe he got charged, maybe with a misdemeanor or a crime. And everybody was up in arms about this tree dying, and they were very upset. And then you have the Johnston County raised student who didn't understand, well, like, you know, because maybe he chopped down trees before and he just didn't look at trees the same way. And so I thought that him looking at the opinion editorial from the school where he thought he wanted to go was very interesting, because it did show him that he would be going to a place that maybe had different opinions than him or different life views than him. So I am going to go, so this, I'm just kind of playing around with this to show you some things. So recently, and I just know this because I'm an alum of ECU, we have just gotten a new chancellor. So that's very much in the news and their social media, that kind of thing. So here they're doing some things, discussing his qualifications, you know, how he'll do. One of the things that you need to be aware of is opinion editorials are meant for regular citizens to write their opinions, and not so much the editorial staffs, because we have to look at them as the professionals who have established opinions, or maybe they're not supposed to have opinions at all because they're journalists. So sometimes, like New York Times, you're going to see regular citizens or celebrities or political figures put out opinions, and then there would be an opinion page also from the editorial staff. Sometimes they even hire columnists to just discuss their opinion. That's all they do. That's what they write about. With school papers, and that's just because it's a different environment, different things go on college campuses. Sometimes you will see the editorial staff also write the opinion editorials. You have to remember that at a lot of these schools, they do have a journalism major, a communication major. That was my undergrad. And then students are very hungry to get experience writing different kinds of things, and they will be employed by the student newspaper. And so sometimes you see a little bit of gray area being crossed over. So if you've chosen to do a university, college type newspaper, I'm not as picky. Like if it is from the editorial staff, I mean, look through and see if you can find one. I was going to see if they had a search bar. I can just see if it'll show something opinion editorial, because it just depends. So, okay, so just to show you the shift, what I was seeing before, those were all staff writers. That's fine. They are students who are taking on a role of a student worker, and so they have opinions about the campus, and even though they are editorial staff, and even in the real world, the editorial staff would not write the opinion editorial. Sometimes in college newspapers, you know, not as many people turning in things. But here I did find a couple of guest editorials. So you may want to go to the search bar and just see if you can find some opinion editorials that are not necessarily written by the staff of the newspaper. But see, even with this, I'm coming down to editorial staff. But I do kind of lift the restrictions a little bit if you do want to explore a college newspaper, just because I think the trade-off is okay. You're getting a trade-off of reading about a potential school and seeing the opinions of that school. I know at ECU there's a big Greek population, and for the fraternities and sororities, so oftentimes those are controversial topics there. I would, though, like for you to steer clear of like editors responding back to an opinion, or something that's just not clearly just an opinion piece. Like, we don't want to do the back and forth rhetoric, that type of thing. We're just looking, or we don't want letters to the editor. Like here's, oh, that's not letters to the editor. I'm not sure what that's about, but we don't want letters to the editor. We want clearly written opinion editorials, and I did another video on that, so you can kind of maybe review that first before you write your own. But these guest editorials are a little old, and to be honest, 2020 was an interesting year. So it looks like around the time that COVID sort of kicked in for changing lifestyles and schedules and things, there haven't been a lot of guest editorials, and that's understandable. So it could be that they're running on a smaller staff today, and maybe in a year from now they would have more opinion editorials. So that's the way to go. And then I wanted to Just do another Google search, it'll be faster. USA Today opinion editorial. So there are a lot on USA Today. USA Today is lighter reading. It's not as maybe heavy as the New York Times. Okay, so here's something. Oh, Gabby Gifford was a representative who was shot during, more or less like an act of shooting. It was, I believe she was campaigning, and I believe she was a senator. She's married to an astronaut. And I think she's married to an astronaut. There's a twin, and I think they're both astronauts. But anyway, she ended up having to step down from her seat. Either she was a congresswoman or a senator. It's been a minute since all this happened, but she's been very outspoken about gun control. So here on March 23rd, she wrote an opinion editorial about gun violence. But you could maybe look through and just see, what might spark your interest. You don't have to do it on gun violence. And another way to manipulate it might be to search and just say, hey, I think I want to do USA Today. Here's a topic I'm interested in. And so I don't know if that'll work, but let's just try it. I'll just stick with the gender bias thing just to see if anything pops up. Okay, so Kamala Harris came up, and some other things about bias in different populations. So if that would be something you're interested in, maybe you can narrow it down a little bit that way. So I did just want to go over this with you. And I am going to try to post a few student reviews so you can just see how, maybe what I'm looking for. This is a general assignment. It's not the main assignment, but it's just a great way for you to become acquainted with the opinion editorials. Let me know if you have any questions. You can always email me, and I can answer any question you have about this general writing assignment.